Okay, so adventure. I'm going to start with a story of a young woman. 30 still young, right? Okay, a young woman was 30 years old. Not really excited about turning 30. Has anybody ever been excited about turning 30? Oh, good. The tides have changed. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. So the year this young woman turned 30, she filed for her second divorce. 3 children. Lost 2 jobs. Bankruptcy was part of the divorce. And on Christmas Eve, received an eviction notice. I didn't know what to do next. My life was not going at all like I had planned. It wasn't at all like I had dreamt it would be when I was 16 and excited about a big future and going after all kinds of opportunities. I've always enjoyed life. I did not do well in grades in high school. I was more the drama club social bee. Not much to my parents' admire, but I got through. I did well, I thought. I did really hard to try to make sure that I was pleasing the people of authority, my parents and grandparents and teachers and bosses. And then 30 hit, and everything fell apart that year. And I honestly didn't know what I was going to do next. So I'm looking for a job, and I had done a lot of customer service work. I managed a whole department. They just shut down my division, so they didn't have a place for me, so that's how I was out without a job. So I applied for the path of least resistance, customer service representative. And in the middle of the conversation, the company's vice president that was interviewing me, and this is my second interview, said, "Have you ever thought about sales?" And I said, "Well, I've dabbled. You know, we all dabble in different things in life. I did Mary Kay Cosmetics, that's sales, right? I did wicker at home parties, but never as a career." And he said, "I really think you would be really great." So I had one more interview, and that was with the owner of the company. And he sits behind this desk, and he looks at me and says, "So, Mary, what do you want?" I said, "Well, that's easy. I want this job. You know, I have 3 children, and I want to be able to put food on the table." And he laughed. And he says, "No, beyond that, what do you want?" And I start crying. You know how embarrassing that is to cry in the middle of an interview? The third interview? Remember, I've got 3 kids at home and no job. So I said, I've never thought of that before, but really, please, give me this job. So I got the job. I think he was more curious than anything else. So I get home and I call Mom, "Hey, I got the job. Great. What are you going to be doing?" "I'm in sales." "Great. How much are you going to make?" "I don't know. It depends on how much I sell." "What do you mean?" 100% sales commission, salesperson. "What are you selling?" "Mobile homes." "Oh, that's exciting. What are you thinking? You have 3 children to support. I had 2 ex-husbands. No support was coming in. If I could depend on them, they would not have been ex-husbands." So, new adventure. I start sales. Within 2 months, I'm salesperson of the month. I heard the sales manager tell one of the other salespeople, "You let a girl beat you." Okay. Yes, I definitely was challenged. And I excelled, and I moved into the business office and sold insurance. And the owner of this company had this wonderful way of supporting the team members of the company by sponsoring us at the self-improvement. Well, I knew I needed some self-improvement because nothing I had done up to that 30 years was working. I was ready to make some changes. And I was actually very desperate to make some changes. I wanted different results in my life. I don't know if anybody else has ever had that experience before of wanting different things, but I was there. And I really wasn't focused or really looking for another relationship, but I met this really interesting man at this event through the seminar, and we were dancing. The friend introduced us, and people kept coming up to him and pushing away from him. Saying, "Get away from her. We like her. You can't be with her." Tony, you want to stand up? We just celebrated our 26th anniversary. Truly has been beyond my wildest dreams in so many ways. So the thing was, Tony, I was an entrepreneur because I was commission salesperson. Tony owned his own business. And he had had his business at that time 23 years. And within 2 years of us being married, my job was changing where my direct boss was all of a sudden telling me I was going to have to work on Sundays. And that was the only day that we had a downtime, family time, and things together. And so that working on Sunday wasn't really setting well with us. So we decided at that point that it was time for me to leave that sales job and join the family business. Mom, hey, I'm going to get a new job. I'm switching. Oh, really? What are you going to do? I said, well, I think you'll be happy to hear I'm not going to be 100% commission. And she says, well, that's interesting. What are you going to do? I'm joining Tony's company. Doesn't he own a cleaning company? I said, yeah, I'm going to be a janitor. Yeah. So my parents haven't been really thrilled with all my choices that I've made in my life, but things have worked out. And so Tony and I decided when we were looking and figuring out what did we want for our future together and working together, we had 65 part-time employees. We were working really hard. It's a 24/7 business. Was not my dream ideal of owning my own business, having 24/7 cleaning toilets and mopping floors. I know God has a really bizarre sense of humor. So we start working together, and we go to this workshop on a quarterly basis called Strategic Coach. Anybody familiar with Strategic Coach? A couple. It's a program for entrepreneurs. They're based in Toronto, but they also have an office in Chicago. So we go to quarterly workshops, and we're with all these other entrepreneurs, and we're trying to figure out what we're going to do. And we kept hearing about retirement. And Tony and I looked at each other after one of the workshops and said, have you ever thought about what we're going to do for retirement? We were so in survival mode. Tony had 2 kids. I had 3 kids. We were just going through day to day trying to make sure we took care of our customers, our employees, our own children. We hadn't even thought about that far in the future. So when somebody turns the light on in the closet and you see the mess, you have a tendency to want to clean it up, right? So we decided we were going to build this business, the entrepreneur's dream, and make it valuable that we can sell it one day, that somebody would buy it, and that would be our retirement. And then we looked at each other and said, who would buy this? We've got a mess. So we had to start by asking different questions. And the number one question was, who could help us? So I hired a consultant. I'd gone to a conference, and I met this guy who was very good in our industry. Our industry is quite large. You know, there's more people in the world that have worked in the janitorial industry than any other industry. You know, and some very successful people have worked as janitors. So it's a good industry. We just had to figure out how to be better at it. So I hired Bob. Bob flew to Cincinnati for a 5-day contract. On day 2, the first night he came in, Tony and Bob and I had dinner, and we figured out what our plan would be for the week. And it was going to start out with Bob and Tony going out Monday evening, scope out the lay of the land, figure out a plan, which buildings are we going to start with. I'm excited. I don't see Tony until the next day when we have this meeting scheduled with Tony, Bob, and I to review what they decided. Bob comes in pulling a suitcase, thinking, this doesn't look right. I said, is everything okay? And he gave Tony that look like, do you ever talk to your wife? And he looked back at me and he says, Mary, it has been an interesting time, and I've got a flight at 4:30. I'm sorry, I can't help you. You're fired. I have never heard of a consultant firing the person that hired them before. And for him to tell you that he couldn't help me on the second day of a 5-day contract, I was shell-shocked. And I let him call a taxi. I wasn't taking him to the airport that day because I didn't know what else to do. I lost my breath. He told me, Mary, you have a people problem. You can't do efficiencies or processes or anything to make this company better until you figure out your people problem. And it wasn't that our people were a problem, we just didn't have enough people. So we bought every book we could find on finding people, keeping people, training people. I kept hearing Barbra Streisand's song, "People who need people are the luckiest people in the world." I really wasn't feeling lucky at all, but I was determined. I was determined. I knew what I wanted. I wanted to make this company better. We already had a lot of people depending on us. How can we make this better? Failure was not an option. I knew why we had to keep moving. So we started asking questions. And through this whole process, by Sunday evening, we kind of did a what all our key people had in common. And the number one thing was transportation. So Monday morning, Tony started our business when he was 19. He gets an idea, he goes out and makes it happen. So he goes out and he buys a 15-passenger van, goes to the sign painting store, has it painted on the side, Jancoa employee shuttle, drives it to the office, tells our general manager at the time, "I figured out how to fix our problem." And she said, "Which one?" Our people problem. We're going to pick them up from home, take them to work, and take them home afterwards. And she just sat there and crossed her arms and said, "Who's going to drive this magic bus? I don't have enough people to clean tonight, let alone drive a van." So Tony became our first shuttle driver. For 2 weeks, he was a shuttle driver. By day 2, he was invisible. Nobody recognized him as the owner of Jancoa. They just saw him as the driver of the shuttle. So Tony started seeing how people were living. He started hearing about their obstacles. He started hearing and seeing what they weren't doing and hearing that he couldn't understand them because of the different countries that our employees have come from. And he would come home and he's got this horrible rule: if I can't sleep, you can't sleep. So he would wake me up and we would talk for hours about what he saw and what he heard. And it broke our hearts. We were so much in our own survival mode that we weren't recognizing the survival mode of our employees. We were hiring people. We were hiring 50 people a month to push a vacuum, to move a dust rag. We weren't looking at the humanity. But Tony being in that shuttle a few hours every night, that humanity was brought right into our face. And we start seeing that they couldn't speak English, hearing that they couldn't speak English, seeing that they had their own obstacles that were actually bigger than some of ours. And we started asking different questions. What would happen if we tried to create value for our customers, than what we do for them, that we do the same thing for our employees? That's kind of like Alice in the Looking Glass, that we get a balance of creating value for them just like we do for our customers. What would that look like? What kind of results would that get? So we start dabbling with it. After the transportation, we start having English classes. We start helping connecting people to agencies. Tony would go out and we would both have these conversations with people in the community to find out what kind of programs exist. And what I have found is every community in this country has amazing programs to assist people to improve their quality of life. And John mentioned one this morning with the Poverty Collaborative that I've been involved with as well, that will help people to move out of that low income status to be able to have a better quality of life. So we start doing things and helping people buy homes. We had over 20 families buy homes. Many of them were first-generation homeowners, because back in the early 2000s, there was a lot of first-time homeownership programs. So they were able to be successful at it. We would ask questions, okay, what would we have to do to create an environment that the people who want to work in our industry, they want to work for us? There used to be this book, some of you might remember, called The Yellow Pages. You could count how many companies are in the same industry that you're in. We had 104 competitors. 104. Why would they choose us? We'd already gone to full-time employees. We already offered health insurance, good health insurance, back in the 90s. We were doing vacation pay. We were doing a lot of things that none of our competitors were doing. So we just took this to a whole new level and start focusing on helping our employees' dreams come true. And what we have found during this process is we help our employees help themselves and want to help others. And somebody introduced us to Matthew Kelly. And Matthew Kelly had already written 10 books, very successful speaker and writer, author, and he said, you guys should write a book. And we'd laugh. And he came over for dinner one night, and actually that night that Matthew came over to dinner, Tony had to leave because our supervisor in one of the schools we used to clean was fighting with an employee, and Tony had to go break up the fight. And Matthew's laughing. He says, these are great stories. You really should write a book. And finally, Matthew came back a couple years later and said, I want to write the book about what you guys are doing. What can we work out? So we worked out a royalty agreement with Matthew Kelly, and he wrote The Dream Manager. And The Dream Manager is written as a fictional story about Admiral Janitorial because we didn't want the book about us. The book is about this program that gets people all over the world excited about their future, to go after the dreams they were made to achieve in their life. That book today is in 15 languages. There's companies all shapes and sizes all over the world that are dreaming differently because of this little cleaning company in Cincinnati that was in desperation mode. Now, we have definitely benefited from it also. Today, we have almost 600 full-time employees. Thank you. And we've had so many things in common with the stories today. Scaling isn't the only way to do business. We consciously chose to stay in the greater Cincinnati area. So we clean over 18 million square feet of Class A office buildings and medical offices just around the greater Cincinnati area because we didn't want the quality of life of having to travel all over the world and not be with our family. Now, Tony and I are blessed with 5 children, and as of this past Sunday, 11 grandchildren. Thank you. Our life is beyond our wildest dreams. And my mom no longer complains about what kind of job I have. It's been a joy and a journey and an adventure. The adventure is, some days it's a drama, some days it's a comedy, and every day there's a bit of mystery involved. But we're always moving forward, trying to make things better to help people go after their dreams. But a couple really key things that I found is you can't help somebody else go after a dream if you're not dreaming big yourself. It really does start, as Michael Jackson said, with the man in the mirror. Too often people will look at other people and say, wow, now John's got the life, I want a life just like his, and try to emulate what John does. Instead of looking in the mirror and doing a self-inventory, what is it I love to do? What gives me energy? How can I spend more time doing what I love, pay my bills, and impact the lives of other people? Because I believe that every one of us are born with a lot of dreams, and we're born with the talents. This is why I didn't want a handheld. See this? The talents and skills to achieve those dreams. Hold that up to my mouth. The adventure in life is when we're going after to find our dreams and our talents and skills come together with our dreams, because that's when passion comes alive. Now, we can all point out people that we've seen on TV, in the movies, on stage that are passionate, and that energy is contagious, right? What would your life be like if you looked in the mirror and you saw that energy in yourself? What would life be like if every day you woke up and thought, wow, today I get to go after my dream and help encourage other people to go after their dreams? We've had people buy homes. We've had people get new jobs. I had one young man from Nigeria come to the office with his newly fresh mint driver's license, and he wanted to have his picture taken with me and our dream manager so he could send it home and say, I can get a job off the bus line. I can make more money because I have a driver's license now. We had one person. Is anybody familiar with the Dream Manager book? A couple people? Excellent. Rita, that's in the book, is actually Gloria. Gloria was a first-time home buyer, and she'd been with us for a number of years, and she always did a great job. She was a supervisor. But all of a sudden, we started getting problems and complaints from her property manager of that building. So we talked to her and said, "What's going on?" And she says, I'm sorry. She says, "This apartment building I've been living in, the drug dealers have moved in, and I start thinking about when I get home, because I always make sure when I leave that the light at the top of the steps is on, but the past few nights, that light's been out, and I just don't feel safe getting home." So we made sure she got home okay, but we also made sure that she knew about the homeowners program. And she didn't think she could buy a home. She had never owned a home before. She wasn't confident about her credit, her capability. So Tony knew Gloria for a very, very long time. So I wouldn't recommend this. Don't try this at home. He said, "Gloria, if you don't apply for a home, I'm going to fire you." "You can't do that." He says, "Yeah, I can." Not that he would, but it got her moving. It got her out of her comfort zone. She was so afraid of another being turned down that she wasn't willing to try. You know, change, the things that spark change in our life is either pain, to move away from pain, or to move toward pleasure. And whichever is more powerful in our mind is what motivates us the strongest. Gloria was in so much pain, she wasn't ready to move toward pleasure. But through help and support and encouragement, one of our team members went with her to the home ownership center and applied with the home. She went through classes to learn how to be a successful homeowner. And things went so well that a couple weeks before she was ready to move in, a brand new home in the neighborhood she wanted to live, one of the tenants in the building she was cleaning found out she was getting a new house and approached her and said, "Gloria, congratulations on your new house." And Gloria was surprised that she knew about it and thanked her. And the tenant said, "Do you by chance need any furniture?" And Gloria says, "Well, I don't have much, but I'll be okay." And she said, "No, Gloria, I just want you to know I've got new furniture on the way, and I've got really good furniture that I haven't found a home for yet, and I thought that maybe you could use it." So Gloria went to her home that Saturday, went in and complimented her on her new furniture. She said it was beautiful. She said, "Oh, no, Gloria, my new furniture's not here yet. This is your furniture." And she just started crying. She got so much furniture from this tenant in the building that it was more than she could use in her own home, and she started donating it to other people that worked with her on the team and shared that value. This is what happens when you go after your dream. You encourage other people to dream, and everybody wants to be part of that energy. So when you dream big, you're not just impacting your own life because people are watching you. You're impacting the lives of everybody around you and beyond. I got a letter from a woman who owns a small cleaning company in Dallas, Texas, 8 years ago. I'm like, before the internet was really well, maybe it was 15 years ago. Time flies when you're having fun. And I'm like, I had no idea that people were watching from that distance. So we have to be very aware of what we're doing. And that's where my workshop, I didn't know this was going to turn into a sales call. I'm going to help everybody work through what's the spark of change that you need to do in your life to achieve the dreams beyond your wildest dreams, to have the life you've always wanted to have, and how can you help everybody else around you to achieve also. Thank you all so much.